Hello. So I thought I would do another one of my influences videos, and this is the second one that was a big influence on my collage artwork, and someone I get compared to a bit less so than Winston Smith, but sometimes my work gets compared to hers. And this is an artist called Vaucher. Now, what she's most famous for is obviously her work for as part of the punk outfit Crass. So she was a non-musical member of the collective, but she's still a part of it. She did the visuals and all that kind of thing. So she was one of the members you didn't see, never saw on the stage, but people knew about her because of the cut. Because of the fantastic cover art. I'm not bringing out my Crass records to show this off, because what they end up making are these immense fold outs. So these are 12. In the case of the albums, these weren't just like a record with like a book in it, like what the Dead Kennedys did, which still was great. This was like a fold out, a big, massive piece of artwork and lyrics and so forth that would fold around the record. So these things could be like about 2 feet by 3 feet. So obviously, I don't have the camera set up to show that to or bring that out, and the some of the 7-inch ones would be different. It'd be like a 7-inch times 4 times 6 times 3 times 2 one way times 3 another. So the exception of that being the Christ the album um, artwork that came in the vinyl, that came in a box. I mean, I only have that. I actually have that album on CD, but some of my Crass records are on vinyl, and also the best before 1984 singles compilation they put out. That's more of your standard gatefold record cover, but for the most part they were these immense um, fold out fold up posters. In their very early days, they as a collective folded up themselves, and once their first EP slash album, Feeding the 5,000, sold very well, then from that subsequent pressings of records from that album, they were able to afford to have the machine pressed, but machine folded even. So anyway, here's her work. Now the thing about I found out from getting this book, I was very excited when this book was going to come out, because I was at the time I was a member of this. I paid into this thing called Friends of AK Press, is the publishing anarchist publishing group, and so they put this out, and I would pay a certain amount a month, and with when that came, and with what came along with that is I would get, I can't remember if I got a discount from stuff in the catalogue, but I would get any new book that came out. So it was like I was on just like paying for the books in advance, really, and I was always excited that this one was going to come out because I'm a huge fan of her work. But what I found out from this is some of her pieces of artwork, like this. This is a cover for the Feeding the 5,000. Now, if you look at it, the way it's composed, the way things are put together, I thought this was a collage. And turns out, if you can read in that bit there, it's actually a gouache painting in black and white as well, which would have been very difficult to do. So she was it still remains a very clever artist. And this is a very famous piece of theirs, of their anti-war stuff. Now, this was the poster for the inside of Feeding the 5,000. So imagine that 3 foot by 2 foot, because this was on the inside. Um, it was, she didn't do too much to it. She just um, selected the picture and put the text, and sometimes that is enough for to change the image or to put across a message. John Yates, who's another one of my influences, he ended up doing that a lot. He started off as a collage artist, and they ended up primarily doing stuff like this. So let's go through all of her work throughout the years, and she talks about, you see there, Collage project, gouache and ink, So it got some of her early stuff from the 60s. She ended up moving to New York before Crass happened, and but she was a long time resident at Dial House, and she basically moved to New York to do for her art career. So that's a still from a performance piece, and it's a photograph, and she turned it into a collage. And this is from an exit performance, which was another one of the art projects that came out of Dial House. The band Crass is absolutely the most famous one, but it was not the only one before or since. So the Stonehenge Festival you may hear about, that came out about at least in part because of them. And Crass was actually been described as a reaction to what happened with a friend of theirs called Wally Hope. So you should look up about Wally Hope, about how what happened to him, because that was terrible. And Crass came about as an act of the anger for what happened to that. So yeah, so these are some ink collages that she did, gouache ink collages she did for a set of 50 poems that Penny Rimbaud, who's her friend, the drummer in Crass, and the major writer for the band. She came up for some of his poems called Acts of Love, which then ended up becoming the final kind of Crass record. So you got some children's books illustrations. This is illustrations for magazines that she made. And again, this is a collage. I mean, it's a gouache painting that behaves like a collage. This is it's really unique that someone would do this. And so she made a lot of money, a fair bit of money making as an illustrator for magazines. So she funded her own magazine, the International Anthem, where she could put the kind of artwork she really wanted to do. So so you see some pages from that. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that, which is a shame. I do actually have, because I just found when I was pulling this book out that I found one of my copies of Fallout, the one that Winston Smith did. I wish I had found that for the last video, but oh well. So here they started to talk about Crass, some issues of International Anthem. That's quite a famous collage piece that she did, and so she would do artwork where she would change parts of faces. It was quite a popular style with the punk movement and punk style artwork. And punk and collage seem to work together really well. Maybe partly down to the punk's beginning as something very similar to the Dada movement. And so that's another thing to go into. I was going to at some point. Some of more of my influences being like John Hartfield and Hannah Hogg, which really those two were some people will argue was it John Hartfield, was it Hannah Hogg? It doesn't really matter. It was those two were the primary people for bringing out what was then called photo montage. Everything we do now comes from those two. And you can see some more influence, the Dada style here. It is kind of Hannah Hockish, but it still more has a modern punk tip to it. Maybe it's because of these images come from newspapers and magazines of the time, as did the Dada pieces. So, and the post Dada. If people talk about Dada collage. Actually, these people's artwork actually became a lot more interesting post Dada, with John Hartfield's he's mainly known for like his anti-Nazi work, and Hannah Hogg for her feminist work and her interest in tribal and African work. But I'll go into that with their own videos. Here you have this is a poster for the Crass single Reality Asylum, which there's another good one to listen to. But again, this folded out. It's painting with a collage frame. So again, even looking at it now, I haven't looked at this book in a long while. You would think that's a collage. It behaves like one, but it is absolutely amazing. The inside poster for Stations of the Crass, although if I remember correctly, that was a black and white It was printed in black and white, because at that time Crass weren't doing coloured. Apart from you'd have, you know, like a single colour. And again, here they've got the Crass logo. She didn't actually do it. She didn't create that. That was an artist called Dave King, who's, again, I'm going to go into. But and this is very famous of hers. This was used for the inside of Bloody Revolutions, of where she had repainted the picture, that famous picture of the Sex Pistols leaning up against a wall, and turned it into something that's appropriate for Crass, really. Again, painting and collage here for the inside of Nagasaki Nightmare. And these are all great. So you've got the inside poster for the Crass album, Penis Envy, so you've got some of the lyrics, and this fantastic angry looking artwork, and some people say collage is really easy, anyone could do that. Well, try and do this. The amount of work that goes into this, and the style is very, it's like angry animation, angry cartoon almost. It's very savage. It's still her own style, but it is kind of fits within the same framework of someone like Ralph Steadman or Gerald Scarfe, that kind of thing. Again, more Crass work. Again, like I said, most of the stuff she did was obviously revolved around Crass, because that was the most of the stuff you find in here. But these are more international anthem stuff. Again, this picture from International Anthem, which was later on, years later, colorized, and that portion of it was used for the cover for Amber Pit Shifter. And she was very much in demand for people who grew up with that band, who wanted to use her artwork. I mean, for instance, I put out a fanzine years and years ago of just artwork, and I actually wrote her and asked permission for her to use it. One of the pieces that ended up in Crass Acts of Love as a cover for it. And she wrote back. It took 6 months, because it took so long, because they write back to everyone. You write to them, you will get a letter back. It just may take a while. And she was very happy about that. Yeah, if you use it. So that was very nice. Again, the cover for Yes Sir I Will, great collage there. And again, this one's a very good piece. I mean, this is the actual raw image. That's why you've got the torn bits, the bits that are cut out there. I do actually have a postcard somewhere of this, where it's all a lot cleaner, it's all stark white. And this is great. This sums up the attitude towards people, the kind of armchair generals that will be gunning for a war that they have no intention or are unable to take part in. This I actually used. I was actually once scanned in this. Used this the picture for a piece of my own. So some of these international anthem were themed. So International 5 War. So again, more of that. War is obviously a very big subject matter for the band, for what Crass were involved in, especially around the time when they existed, around the time of the Falklands War. So there were the few people that actually stood out against it, and also during the really last dangerous part of the Cold War. So nuclear weapons were a big point of discussion, with not just them, with the entire anarcho-punk scene. So work she's done for other bands, a band called Corpus Christi. No, a label who's set up an alternative record label to Crass Records. Again, Thatcher and Reagan were involved in their artwork a lot, but that's because of the time. So you have, again, these pieces for Acts of Love. None of these, I think, are the actual piece that I use. That zine has disappeared years ago. So, and that's the front cover for the Best Before 1984 record covers for a band called Tackhead. The single for a band called Schwarzenegger. This was a band that Steve Ignorant from Crass came out with years later. I wish I missed seeing them, because the band they were going to be supporting were they cancelled the date that they were going to be supporting them, and they split up thereafter. I never got to see them, which is a shame. I mean, these are great photographs and oil paint, where she's kind of disfigured the original original statue, which is in photographic form only. So these are more of her style. Again, paintings that behave like collages. Well, these are pastels. She's a very technically and technically trained artist. It's just she chooses to display horror. So, and you do savage styles, because someone said, well, a kid could do that, but who cares? It's that's the intent, I guess. So you have all this stuff here, which is great. Transfer print, and one that didn't I for some reason I thought was in this book. Actually, it's this. This piece here, this one for Tackhead. The painted part of Tackhead was I think that may have just been added for the band, for the record label. See, there's a version of this without that on, and that was actually used on the front cover of, I believe, the Daily Mirror the day after Donald Trump became president. So this was you know, one of obviously the most viewed piece of her artwork, and I think it summed up the feeling of a lot of people once he became president, and shows these are times where what they talked about are unfortunately still relevant. There are still swines out there. So yeah, and this is accurate. This is part of the footnote at the end. Artists often lament the loss of quality when their work is reproduced. The work of purely graphic artists is invariably enhanced by the printing process. In its original form, GV's work is intricate and tactile, while the imagery is sometimes almost overwhelming. So yeah, but still, even with it being reproduced, as you can see, it's still. I mean, if you were to look at the actual pieces, and you would maybe see some clarity and detail that you don't see in the reproduction. But still, they've AK Press did a really good job of putting her work out, and so she's still a practicing artist. She still has exhibitions and so forth, and she still puts out artwork, and is very open to speaking to people. So see what you think. Have a look at more of her artwork. Check out get the Crass records. I mean, well, the new pressings of the Crass records, the covers are different. They worked with John Yates and that made different covers, which is a shame, because I liked the original artwork. But if you can get older versions, you know, from record sales and so forth of the record markets of the original style of the Crass artwork, I would get them, because each one of them is it's like I said about in the Jamie Reed tribute. Punk was the first time where I believe, and so there's a Winston Smith one. Punk is the first time, I believe, where the cover art has been weaponized, and it's not just well, you still do get occasions where it's like a picture of the band, but these are times where the cover artwork is as much as part of the message as the music itself, and they're all part of the complete package, I think. And this is the only time this had happened before, and it has its own. This is carried over into some forms of music, like mostly like some metal bands and rock bands will still have that going on, where the cover is part of the message. But that really began with punk and with people like this. So check out more of her work. Like, share, and subscribe, and still, and if you are a collage artist, I want to receive submissions from you for my collage art magazine. It's going to be strictly on YouTube, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.